Four grown men, big tattooed, leather-clad bikers, chained to trees in the middle of nowhere. Beaten, robbed, left to die under the Georgia sun. No one stopped. Cars drove past. No one even slowed down. Until an 18-year-old black kid walked out of the tree line, looked at four bleeding strangers twice his size, and said 6 words that would change his life forever.
Don't be scared. I'll help you.
He had no phone, no weapon, no idea if the armed robbers were coming back. He helped anyway. He didn't ask for their names. He didn't ask for a single thing in return. He just saved their lives and walked home to make his grandma dinner. But what this kid didn't know was exactly who he'd just unchained. And 2 weeks later, 2,000 riders came looking for him. Winslow Springs, Georgia. Population 1,800 and shrinking. The kind of town where the biggest building on Main Street is boarded up, where the only grocery store closed 2 years ago, where the nearest Dollar General is 14 miles down a road with no sidewalk. This is where Yansy Brooks grew up. Not because he chose it, because life didn't give him a choice. Yansy was 18, just graduated from the county high school, top 10 in his class. Smart enough to get accepted into Georgia Tech's engineering program. Smart enough to know he couldn't afford it. That acceptance letter was still pinned on the wall above his desk. He looked at it every morning. Every morning it reminded him of the same thing. Close, but not close enough. He lived with his grandmother. Everyone called her Nana Dot. 68 years old, diabetic, worked part-time cleaning churches, even though her knees ached so bad some mornings she had to grip the bathroom sink just to stand up. She'd raised Yansy since he was 4. That's when his father went to prison. Nonviolent drug charge. Mandatory minimum. 10 years turned into 14 with no parole. His mother left for Atlanta 2 years after that. Said she'd send money. Said she'd call. She did at first. Then the money got thinner. The calls got shorter. Then they just stopped. So it was Yansy and Nana Dot. That's it. That's the whole team. Their house sat at the end of a dirt road past the creek. A weathered, clapboard house with chipped paint and a blue tarp patching the roof where the shingles gave up 2 winters ago. No air conditioning, just box fans that pushed hot air from one room to another. But Nana Dot kept that house spotless. Every surface wiped, every dish put away. A handwritten note taped on the fridge in her shaky cursive. God didn't bring you this far to leave you. Yansy read that note every morning, too. Some mornings he believed it. Some mornings he didn't. His alarm went off at 5:15 every day. First thing, check Nana Dot's blood sugar. Then make her oatmeal with the cinnamon she liked. Then walk to work. He worked full-time at Ray Dalton's garage, the only auto shop within 20 miles. Oil changes, brake jobs, tire rotations, whatever Ray needed. After work, he'd pick up extra jobs mowing lawns, clearing brush for elderly neighbors, fixing fences. Every dollar went into a jar under his bed. Not for himself. For Nana Dot's insulin. Last month, the pharmacy raised the copay again. Yansy didn't say a word about it. He just started skipping lunch. $5 here, $6 there. The jar was up to $142 now. Nana Dot didn't know he was skipping meals. He planned to keep it that way. But Yansy wasn't just a kid who worked hard. He was a kid who dreamed hard. Every night after dinner, he'd sit at his desk, a wobbly table he'd reinforced himself, and open his composition notebook. The cover was worn soft at the corners. The pages inside were covered with drawings. Not doodles, not sketches. Engineering blueprints. Bridges, engine cross-sections, structural load diagrams, the kind of drawings that made Ray Dalton shake his head and say, "Boy, you're wasting your brain in my garage." Yansy wanted to build things, real things, things that lasted, things that mattered. But for now, the only thing he was building was a jar of crumpled bills, and it was never enough. That Thursday afternoon, Yancey left Ray's garage around 2 o'clock. Georgia sun brutal, the kind of heat that makes the road shimmer like water. He walked the same route he always walked, past the gas station, past the dead oak tree at the bend. He'd passed that tree 10,000 times in his life. He stopped, pulled out his notebook, and drew that tree, but not the way it looked. He drew it alive, full of leaves, branches reaching upward. That's who Yancey was. A kid who looked at dead things and saw what they could become. He tucked the notebook back into his bag, wiped the sweat off his forehead with the back of his hand, and kept walking. That afternoon, he decided to take the long way home down County Road 12. It was a nothing decision, the kind you make without thinking. Left instead of right, this road instead of that one. But that one small choice, left instead of right, County Road 12 instead of the main road, was about to put Yancey Brooks face to face with something no 18-year-old should have to deal with alone. 4 strangers, chained, bleeding, helpless, and a decision that would cost him nothing and change everything. County Road 12, a narrow 2-lane road with no shoulder, no houses, no streetlights, just pine trees pressing in from both sides like walls, and red clay ditches running along the edges. No cell signal out here. Yancey knew that. Everybody who lived around here knew that. It was the kind of road where if something happened to you, you were on your own. The heat was unbearable, past 95 degrees. The air didn't move. It just sat there, heavy, thick, like breathing through a wet towel. Yancey's shirt was soaked through. His water bottle was half empty and getting warm. Then he heard it. A sound, faint, coming from somewhere past the tree line on the right side of the road. At first he thought it was an animal, a dog maybe, or a deer caught in a fence. He slowed down, listened. It came again, louder this time. Not an animal, a human voice. Hoarse, desperate. Someone was screaming for help, but the scream had no strength left in it. Like whoever it was had been yelling for a long time and their throat had given out. Yancey stopped walking. He looked up and down the road. Empty. Not a single car, not a single person. He noticed tire marks on the shoulder, fresh ones cutting into the soft clay. And further up, 4 motorcycles parked on the roadside. Big touring machines, chrome glinting in the sun. One of them had leather saddlebags so clean they looked brand new. The kind of bike Yancey had never seen in Winslow Springs, shinier than any car on his street. But no riders. The voice came again, weaker now. Yancey's stomach tightened. He had 2 choices. Keep walking home. Nana Dot was waiting. Dinner needed to be made. It was a Thursday like any other Thursday. Or walk into those trees toward a sound he couldn't explain on a road with no signal, with no one around for miles. A pickup truck appeared around the bend. Yancey almost felt relief, but the truck slowed. The driver glanced toward the tree line and then hit the gas. Gone. 30 seconds later, a sedan did the same thing. Slowed, looked, left. Nobody stopped. Yancey stood there for a moment. He thought about Nana Dot. He thought about the insulin jar. He thought about how the world had never once stopped for him. Then he stepped off the road and pushed through the brush. 40 yards in, he found them. A small clearing between the pines. 4 men, big, bearded, covered in tattoos, chained to 2 large pine trees. Industrial chain, the thick kind. Wrapped around their torsos and the tree trunks locked down with heavy padlocks. Their wrists were zip-tied behind their backs underneath the chains. The scene hit Yancey like a wall. One of them, the biggest, with a shaved head, had blood running down the side of his face. A deep gash above his ear. His eyes were half closed, head rolling to the side. He was fading. The heat was cooking him alive. Another, the youngest-looking one, was pulling at his chains frantically. The chain around his right wrist had been cinched so tight his hand was turning purple. Dark purple. He was losing circulation. A third sat slumped against his tree, lips cracked white. His voice was the one Yancey had heard, but he had nothing left. He'd been screaming into empty woods for over an hour. The fourth man was different. He wasn't panicking. He wasn't screaming. He sat upright against the tree, blood drying on a cut above his eyebrow, watching Yancey with eyes that didn't match the situation. Calm. Focused. Like he was studying Yancey the way someone studies a blueprint. He spoke first. Voice low, controlled, steady. "Kid, get out of here, now. The men who did this were armed. They could come back." Yancey looked at the blood on the big man's face, looked at the purple hand, looked at the cracked lips and the empty eyes of a man who'd given up hope that anyone was coming. He set his backpack down on the pine needles, took one step closer, and said it so quietly that the man with the calm eyes almost didn't hear him. "Don't be scared. I'll help you." The man stared at him. Something shifted behind those eyes, something Yancey couldn't read yet. "Kid, I'm serious. They had guns. Then that's one more reason I need to be fast." Yancey crouched down next to the man with the bleeding head and got to work. But what Yancey didn't know, what he couldn't have known, was that the man watching him with those calm, calculating eyes wasn't just some random biker who got robbed on a back road. He was someone else entirely. And he was already making a decision about Yancey Brooks that would rearrange everything. Yancey didn't panic. He didn't freeze. He didn't call for help because there was no one to call. He just moved. The first thing he did was nothing. He stood still and looked. Walked a slow circle around both trees. Studied the chains, how they were wrapped where the padlocks sat, which links were load-bearing. He counted 3 padlocks. He traced the zip ties underneath. He noted which man was in the worst shape. Then he made a plan. The man with the purple hand, that was first. He was losing circulation fast. Another 30 minutes and the damage could be permanent. Yancey grabbed a flat rock from the ground and a thick stick from the brush. He wedged the stick between the chain and the man's wrist, then used the rock to tap it deeper, creating just enough slack to let blood flow back through. The man gasped. His fingers twitched. Color started creeping back in, slow but moving. "Hold still," Yancey told him. Calm, steady, like he'd done this 100 times. "I'm gonna get you out." The man Dustin stared at him like he was looking at a ghost. "Where did you come from?" "Down the road," Yancey said, already moving to the next problem. The big man with the shaved head, Hank, was in bad shape. The gash above his ear was still oozing. His eyes were glassy. His skin was burning hot to the touch. Concussion plus heat exhaustion, a dangerous combination. Yancey pulled a clean shop rag from his backpack. He always carried one from Ray's garage. He poured what was left of his water over it and pressed it against the wound. Then he turned to the man slumped against the other tree. Travis, the one whose voice had given out. "Hey, I need you to keep talking to him. Don't let him close his eyes. Can you do that?" Travis nodded. His cracked lips moved. Yeah, I can do that." Now the chains. Yancey pulled out his multi-tool, the one Ray Dalton had given him last Christmas. It wasn't much, but the blade was sharp enough for the zip ties. He cut them off, all 4 men's wrists, one by one, hands free. But the chains and padlocks were industrial grade. The multi-tool couldn't touch them. Yancey looked at the padlocks. Then he looked toward the brush, the direction the men said the robbers had thrown the keys. He dropped to his knees, started sweeping through pine needles and dirt with both hands. Grid pattern, methodical, like he was searching a crime scene, because that's exactly what it was. 3 minutes. Nothing. 5 minutes. Nothing. The man with the calm eyes, the one who'd told him to run, watched every move Yancey made without saying a word. 7 minutes. Yancey's fingers closed around something metal buried under a layer of dead leaves. A key. He tried the first padlock. Didn't fit. Second padlock. Click. It opened. The chain fell loose. Dustin and Travis slid free from their tree. Travis collapsed onto his side in the dirt. Dustin just sat there holding his wrist, breathing. But the key didn't fit the other two padlocks. Hank and the calm-eyed man were still chained. Yancey didn't hesitate. He stood up and sprinted back through the brush toward the road. The 4 motorcycles were still parked there baking in the sun. The robbers had emptied the saddlebags but left them on the bikes, too conspicuous to steal in broad daylight. Yancey searched every bag, one by one, fast but thorough. In a side compartment of the last bike he found it, a compact emergency bolt cutter, standard touring equipment. He noticed something else, initials stamped into the leather of the saddlebag, G.S. And on the toolkit case, a small logo, a star, like a compass. He filed it away. Didn't ask. Didn't have time to ask. He ran back. Cut through the chain in 2 hard squeezes. The links split apart. Hank slumped forward. Yancey caught him before he hit the ground. The calm-eyed man stood slowly, rubbing his wrists, watching Yancey with an expression that had changed. It wasn't just calm anymore. It was something deeper, something quieter. Yancey moved all 4 men into the shade at the edge of the clearing. He gave his last mouthful of water to Hank, soaked his own shirt and laid it across Hank's forehead to cool him down. He had nothing left for himself. No water, no shirt, just his jeans and his backpack. Then he said, "I need to get to higher ground. There's a ridge about half a mile south. Sometimes I can catch 1 bar there." The calm-eyed man grabbed his arm. "Kid, you've done enough. You don't need to." "That man needs an ambulance," Yancey said, pointing at Hank. "And I can run fast." He ran. Half a mile. Uphill. In 95-degree heat. No water. Bare-chested. Over rocks and roots and red clay. He found 1 bar of signal at the top of the ridge. Called 911. Gave the exact mile marker. He knew every marker on County Road 12 because he walked it almost every day. Then he ran back. When he got back to the clearing, he sat down next to the 4 men, breathing hard, sweat pouring off him. He picked up his notebook, the one he'd been drawing in earlier, and started fanning Hank with it. The calm-eyed man watched the pages flutter. Even from where he sat, he could see what was drawn inside. Bridges, engine cross-sections, load-bearing calculations, detailed, precise, professional-level work from an 18-year-old kid sitting shirtless in the dirt. He said quietly, "Who taught you to be like this?" Yancey didn't look up, just kept fanning. "My Nana says you help people because it's Tuesday. Doesn't need to be a special day." The calm-eyed man said nothing, but his jaw tightened, and he looked at Yancey the way no one had ever looked at Yancey before, not with pity, not with gratitude, but with recognition. 15 minutes later, the ambulance arrived. Sheriff's deputies right behind. The clearing exploded with lights and radios and stretchers. EMTs took over Hank. Deputies started taking statements about the robbery. In the middle of all that chaos, Yancey quietly picked up his backpack, put his torn, sweat-soaked shirt back on, and started walking toward the road. The calm-eyed man called out from behind him, "Hey, where are you going?" Yancey glanced back over his shoulder. "Home. My Nana's waiting for dinner." And he walked away, down the road, the same direction he always walked, like it was just another Thursday. The man with the calm eyes stood in that clearing for a long time, staring down the empty road long after Yancey had disappeared around the bend. In 32 years of building an empire of reading people across boardroom tables and negotiation floors of sizing up character in a single handshake, he had never seen anything like what he'd just witnessed. An 18-year-old kid with nothing, no phone, no weapon, no reason to stay, ran toward four chained strangers in the woods, freed them with a rock, a stick, a shop rag, and a Christmas multi-tool, gave away his water, gave away his shirt, ran half a mile through brutal heat to call for help, then walked home like nothing happened. No reward, no recognition, not even a name exchanged. He turned to Hank lying on the stretcher and said 5 words. "I need to find him." But finding Yancey Brooks was only the beginning. Because what this man was about to set in motion, what was already forming behind those calm, calculating eyes, would be something far bigger than a thank you. Far bigger than money. Far bigger than anything Yancey had ever dared to dream about. And it all started with a question no one in Winslow Springs could answer yet. Who exactly was the man with the compass ring, Garrett Sullivan? Spent the next 48 hours doing 2 things: recovering from 4 bruised ribs and searching for a kid whose last name he didn't know. He had a first name, Yancey. He had a location somewhere off County Road 12, and he had a face he couldn't stop seeing every time he closed his eyes. A kid standing shirtless in the dirt, fanning an unconscious man with a notebook full of engineering drawings. That was it. That was all he had to go on. He sent Hank, stitched up, bandaged, stubborn as ever, to ask around the nearby towns. Gas stations, diners, the post office. Nobody knew a Yancey. Or if they did, they weren't telling some big stranger with a bandaged head anything about a local kid. Then Hank stopped at the only auto shop in the area, a small cinder block building with a hand-painted sign out front. Dalton's Garage. Ray Dalton was underneath a Ford F-150 when Hank walked in. He rolled out, wiped his hands on a rag, and looked up at this massive man with stitches above his ear. "I'm looking for a kid named Yancey," Hank said. "He helped us out on County Road 12 a couple days ago." Ray's face changed immediately. Yancey Brooks. Yeah, that's my guy. Works for me full-time. Smartest kid I've ever had in this shop." He studied Hank's stitches. "What happened out there?" Hank told him, the short version. Ray shook his head slowly. "That sounds like Yancey. Kid can't walk past a flat tire without stopping." He gave directions to the Brooks house, but added, "Whatever you want with him, that young man doesn't need any trouble. He's had enough." 2 days later, Garrett pulled up to the Brooks house. No motorcycle this time, no leather jacket, just a clean button-down and a rented SUV. He saw the blue tarp on the roof, the sagging porch, the box fans in every window. His jaw tightened. Nana Dot answered the door. She looked at this stranger through the screen and didn't open it. "Can I help you?" "Ma'am, my name is Garrett Sullivan. Your grandson saved my life and the lives of 3 of my closest friends. I came to thank him properly." Nana Dot studied him for a long moment, then opened the screen door. Not all the way, just enough. Yancey appeared behind her. He recognized Garrett immediately, not by name but by the cut above his eyebrow. "Oh, hey, how's your head? That cut heal up okay?" No fanfare, no expectation, like he was asking about the weather. Garrett pulled out an envelope. Thick. Yancey could see what it was without opening it. He looked at the envelope, looked at Nana Dot, then shook his head. "I didn't help you for money, sir. My Nana would skin me alive if I took cash for doing what's right." Nana Dot nodded once. "He's telling the truth. I would." Garrett put the envelope back. extended his hand instead. Yancey shook it and felt something heavy pressing into his palm. A thick platinum ring with a symbol carved into it. A star, like a compass. "That's a cool ring," Yancey said. "I saw that same symbol on your bike toolkit." Garrett looked at the ring, then at Yancey. "It means something. I'll tell you what someday." He turned and walked toward the SUV, and that's when it happened. The moment that changed everything, not for Yancey, but for Garrett. He glanced back through the kitchen window, a refrigerator nearly empty, insulin on the top shelf, a jar of crumpled small bills on the counter, and on the wall above a wobbly desk, a Georgia Tech acceptance letter pinned with a single thumbtack. Garrett got in the SUV, put both hands on the steering wheel, and didn't start the engine for a full minute. He'd offered money and been refused. Most people would have respected that and moved on. But Garrett Sullivan was not most people. What he was quietly putting into motion would be something Yancey could never refuse. Because it wasn't charity, it was recognition. Over the next few weeks, small things started happening in Winslow Springs. Things nobody could explain. A surveyor showed up one Tuesday morning on Main Street, set up his tripod next to the old hardware store, the one that had been boarded up for 3 years. Measured the lot. Took photos. When old Mrs. Patterson asked who sent him, he smiled and said, "Just a routine assessment, ma'am," then drove away in a car with out-of-state plates. A woman in a black blazer visited the county school board office that same week. Professional, polished. The kind of woman who didn't show up in Winslow Springs unless she was lost. She asked for Yancey Brooks's academic transcripts, test scores, and attendance records. Had proper authorization signed, stamped, official. The clerk gave her everything. The woman left a business card and disappeared. Coach Prescott got a phone call that Friday. A man's voice. Said he represented an athletic and academic foundation. Asked about Yancey's track times, his character, his work ethic. Coach Prescott answered honestly, then asked her own question. "Who exactly is funding this foundation?" The line went quiet. "I'm not at liberty to say, ma'am. Not yet." Yancey noticed none of this. He was too busy. Working at Ray's garage 6 days a week, taking care of Nana Dot, picking up odd jobs on weekends. The same routine, the same grind, the same jar of bills growing one crumpled 5 at a time. But Nana Dot noticed. She noticed the unfamiliar black SUV parked near the church she cleaned on Wednesdays. She noticed a FedEx truck deliver a package to the county clerk's office. In Winslow Springs, where nobody got FedEx deliveries, something was happening. She could feel it the way old bones feel a storm coming. Then Ray Dalton got a visit. A man in a suit walked into the garage on a Monday afternoon, asked detailed questions about Yancey, his mechanical skills, his problem-solving ability, his engineering sketches. Ray answered every one. The man thanked him, shook his hand, and left a business card on the counter. Ray picked it up, read it. His face went pale. He grabbed his phone and called Nana Dot. His voice was different, shaky, almost breathless. "Dorothy, do you know who that boy of yours helped on that road?" A long pause on the other end. "Dot, I think you need to sit down." The compass on Garrett Sullivan's ring wasn't decoration. It was an emblem. The emblem of an organization with 12,000 members, chapters in 38 states, and a single founding mission: ride far, give back, leave no one behind. And their president had just activated the entire network for one young man in one forgotten town. Yancey Brooks had helped a man he thought was a regular biker with a nice ring. He was wrong. Very, very wrong. The man's name was Garrett Sullivan, and that name, if you typed it into any search engine, would pull up over 12 million results. Garrett Sullivan, founder and CEO of Sullivan Crane Industries, a logistics and infrastructure company valued at $2.4 billion, 6,000 employees across 22 states, government contracts, international partnerships, the kind of company that builds the roads and bridges and shipping networks that keep an entire country moving. He started with nothing. A 22-year-old kid driving a single flatbed truck across the Southeast, hauling lumber and concrete for contractors who paid him just enough to keep gas in the tank. 32 years later, that one truck had become a fleet of thousands. That broke kid had become one of the most powerful men in American logistics. But that was his day job. His real mission, the thing that got him out of bed at 4 in the morning and kept him up past midnight, had nothing to do with money. 18 years ago, Garrett Sullivan's son, his only child, was attacked on a rural highway outside of Knoxville. Car trouble. 2 men pulled over. What looked like help turned into a robbery. His son was beaten and left on the shoulder of the road. Cars drove past. Trucks drove past. For 45 minutes, people saw a young man lying on the side of a highway, and not one of them stopped. By the time someone finally called 911, it was too late. Garrett buried his son on a Tuesday, and something inside him broke. Not the kind of breaking that makes you collapse, the kind that makes you rebuild. Harder, sharper, with a purpose that burns so hot it never goes out. 6 months after the funeral, Garrett co-founded the Iron Compass Brotherhood, a motorcycle organization built on one simple idea: no one gets left on the side of the road. Ever. What started as 12 riders doing highway safety patrols grew into something massive. 12,000 members, chapters in 38 states, millions of dollars raised every year for roadside emergency programs, youth mentorship, and community rebuilding in underserved areas. The Compass Star, the one on Garrett's ring, on the toolkit on every member's vest, meant one thing: we ride toward the problem, not away from it. And on that Thursday afternoon on County Road 12, when an 18-year-old kid walked into a clearing where 4 chained men were bleeding and baking under the Georgia sun, when every car had driven past, when every reasonable person would have kept walking, that kid did exactly what the Compass Star stood for. He rode toward the problem. On foot. Alone. With nothing but a backpack. Now here's the part that makes your skin crawl. Those 4 riders that day, they weren't on a casual ride. They were on the Brotherhood's annual Compass Run, a week-long route through the rural South, scouting underserved communities for the organization's next major investment project. They'd been riding through forgotten towns for days, documenting need, assessing infrastructure, talking to locals. Winslow Springs was already on their list. Garrett had already seen the boarded-up Main Street, the closed grocery store, the crumbling roads. He'd already flagged this town as a candidate for the Brotherhood's community rebuilding program. And then a kid from that same town unchained him from a tree. It wasn't just coincidence, it was confirmation. Now let's go back and look at everything again, because every single clue was right there in front of you. The motorcycles parked on the roadside. Those weren't regular Harleys. They were custom-built touring machines worth over $80,000 each. Hand-stitched leather, monogrammed saddlebags, GS. Compass Star logos on the engine covers and the emergency toolkit. Yancey saw all of it. He just didn't know what it meant. Garrett's behavior while chained to that tree. He wasn't panicking like the others. He was sitting upright, watching, evaluating, asking pointed questions. What's your name? Where do you live? Who taught you to be like this? That wasn't a scared man making conversation. That was a CEO conducting an interview. He was reading Yancey the way he read business proposals. Fast, thorough, and final. The way he looked at Yancey's notebook. He saw those engineering drawings, bridges, engines, load-bearing calculations, and his eyebrow lifted. A man who builds infrastructure for a living looking at professional-level blueprints drawn by an 18-year-old mechanic's assistant in a town with no future. He didn't say anything in that moment, but he didn't need to. The decision was already forming, and Hank, the retired Marine with the shaved head and the blood running down his face, he told Garrett something in the ambulance that sealed it. That kid reminded me of every Marine I ever served with. No quit, no ego, just do the job. And he did it knowing those armed men could have come back any second. Garrett made one phone call from his hospital bed that night, then another, then 6 more. Within a week, he recorded a 3-minute video from his office. He told the story, no last name, no location, just the story. A young man who ran into the woods to free 4 chained strangers with a rock, a stick, a shop rag, and a multi-tool, who gave away his water and his shirt, who called 911 from a ridge half a mile away, then walked home to make his grandmother dinner. He sent that video to every Iron Compass chapter in the country. Within 72 hours, over 2,000 riders volunteered to make the trip. Garrett set the date. 2 weeks from the attack. 2,000 riders were coming to Winslow Springs. But they weren't just bringing motorcycles. They were bringing lumber, tools, medical supplies, scholarships, and a life-changing offer that Garrett Sullivan had been designing personally with a composition notebook full of engineering sketches and a Georgia Tech acceptance letter in mind. The kid who drew a dead tree full of leaves was about to watch his own world bloom. On a Saturday morning in October, Yancey Brooks woke up to a sound he'd never heard in Winslow Springs and would never forget. It started low, a distant rumble like thunder, but the sky was clear. Then it got louder and louder. The windows started vibrating. The box fans rattled in their frames. The glass of water on Nana Dot's nightstand rippled like something out of a movie. Yancey sat up in bed, listened. That wasn't thunder. He walked to the front door and stepped onto the porch, and his legs almost gave out. The road, the same dirt road he walked every single day of his life, was filled with motorcycles. Not 10, not 50, thousands. A column of chrome and leather and roaring engines that stretched past the tree line around the bend and out of sight. Every single rider wore a vest with the same symbol on the back, a compass star. Yancey's hand went to his chest. He felt his heart slamming against his ribs. He recognized that symbol, the ring, the toolkit, the saddlebag. He just never imagined it meant this. Nana Dot appeared behind him. She put her hand on his shoulder. Her fingers were trembling. Tears were already running down her face before anyone said a single word. The column slowed. The lead motorcycle pulled up to the Brooks house and stopped. The engine cut. Silence. Sudden, heavy silence after all that thunder. Garrett Sullivan swung his leg off the bike, removed his helmet, and walked up the porch steps like he'd been here 100 times. He looked at Yancey, then at Nana Dot, then back at Yancey. I told you that ring meant something. He extended his hand. Now let me show you what. Yancey shook his hand. Same heavy ring, same compass star pressing into his palm. But this time he understood what it meant. Garrett didn't rush. He spoke calmly, the same steady voice from the clearing. Yancey, I didn't come back to give you money. You made it clear how you feel about that, and I respect it more than you know. He paused. So I brought you something you can't refuse, because it's not charity. It's what you've earned. He laid it out, one piece at a time. First, Georgia Tech. Full scholarship, tuition, housing, books, fees, all 4 years, funded through the Sullivan Crane Educational Foundation. That acceptance letter on your wall isn't a dream anymore, son. It's a plane ticket. Yancey didn't move, didn't blink. His lips parted, but nothing came out. Second, Nanodot's medical care, full coverage, insulin, quarterly specialist visits from Atlanta, monitoring equipment, emergency fund, all through the Iron Compass Brotherhood's healthcare program. Ma'am, you will never choose between groceries and medicine again. That's a promise. Not from a stranger, from a man your grandson saved. Nanodot pressed both hands over her mouth. Her shoulders shook. Third, the house. Garrett gestured toward the column of riders behind him. You see those men and women out there? Over 200 of them are tradesmen. Electricians, roofers, plumbers, carpenters. They didn't ride 1,000 miles to shake your hand and leave. He looked up at the blue tarp on the roof. In 48 hours, this house gets a new roof, new wiring, new plumbing, insulation, air conditioning, real air conditioning, a stocked pantry, and a proper desk in your room with a laptop loaded with engineering software. Yancey looked at the tarp he'd stared at every day for 2 years, the tarp that leaked when it rained and flapped when it was windy, and reminded him every single morning that close wasn't close enough. His eyes were wet now. Fourth, the community. Sullivan Crane Industries was partnering with the county to reopen the old hardware store on Main Street as a community vocational center. Free classes in mechanics, welding, electrical work, and small engine repair, open to anyone, named the Brooks Compass Center. Your name Yancey on the building, because this town needs to know what one of its own is capable of. Ray Dalton, standing in the crowd, arms crossed, heard his name next. Lead instructor, full salary. His garage skills, his patience, his mentorship, formalized, funded, and permanent. Fifth, a guaranteed summer internship at Sullivan Crane Industries, engineering division, mentored by Garrett's own infrastructure team, starting the summer after Yancey's freshman year. Garrett finished talking. The crowd was silent. 2,000 people. Not a sound. Yancey stood on the porch for a long time. He looked at the riders, at Garrett, at Nanodot. Then he looked down at his wrist, at the old digital watch held together with electrical tape. The only thing his father ever gave him. His voice cracked when he finally spoke. Barely above a whisper. I just helped because it was the right thing to do. Garrett nodded slowly. I know, son. That's exactly why you deserve this. Nanodot stepped forward. This small, 68-year-old woman with bad knees and shaking hands, she walked up to Garrett Sullivan, this tall, broad stranger in leather, and she hugged him. Right there on the porch, in front of 2,000 witnesses, she whispered something into his chest, so quiet only he could hear it. You're an answer to a prayer I stopped saying out loud. Garrett's arms closed around her. And for the first time in a very long time, the man with the calm eyes didn't look calm at all. But this story wasn't done yet. Because Garrett Sullivan hadn't planned one final detail. He didn't know about it yet. And when it happened, when it came out of nowhere, unscripted and unrehearsed, it would break the last wall the old man had built around his heart. What happened over the next 48 hours in Winslow Springs hadn't happened in that town in 50 years. People showed up. Day one started at sunrise. Before Yancey even finished his coffee, the front yard was filled with riders unloading trucks. Lumber, shingles, copper wiring, PVC pipe, boxes of insulation stacked 6 feet high. A flatbed trailer carrying a brand new HVAC unit rolled down the dirt road like a parade float. The blue tarp came off the roof by 9 in the morning. Yancey stood in the yard and watched 2 men rip it away in one clean pull. That tarp had been up there for 2 years. 2 years of rain leaking through the ceiling into a pot on the hallway floor. 2 years of wind flapping it at night like a reminder that nothing in this house was whole. Gone. Just like that. By noon, the old shingles were stripped. By 3 o'clock, new plywood sheeting was going down. By sundown, the framing was reinforced, and a team from Savannah was already roughing in new electrical wiring. Nana Dot sat across the street in a lawn chair under the shade of a pecan tree. She didn't move all day, just watched, tissue in her hand, watching strangers, big tattooed strangers, who looked like they'd ridden out of a movie, crawl across her roof and under her floors and through her walls, fixing everything that had been broken for as long as she could remember. At one point, a little girl from down the road brought Nana Dot a glass of sweet tea. Nana Dot took it, said thank you, and went right back to crying. Neighbors started coming out, first just to watch, then to help. A retired carpenter from 2 streets over showed up with his own toolbox. A woman from the church brought sandwiches for the crews. By the afternoon, it wasn't just the brotherhood working on that house, it was the whole town. Day 2 was even bigger. A writer from Birmingham tiled the bathroom. Another from Jacksonville installed the HVAC system, plumbing, insulation, drywall, paint. It went up fast, the way things go up when 200 skilled hands work together with a single purpose. Yancey was in the middle of all of it, not watching, working, handing tools, asking questions about load-bearing walls and junction boxes and circuit breakers, sketching the process in his notebook, learning from every single person who touched that house. By Sunday evening, the Brooks house was unrecognizable. New roof, new porch, solid level, no more sagging, working air conditioning for the first time in its existence, new wiring, new plumbing, a stocked pantry, not a few cans, but full. And in Yancey's room, a proper desk with a new laptop loaded with engineering software, courtesy of the Brotherhood. Nana Dot walked through the house that night. She touched the walls. She opened every cabinet. She stood in front of the air conditioning vent and closed her eyes and just breathed. She didn't say a word. She didn't have to. Monday morning, the community came together on Main Street. The old hardware store lot was cleared. A banner went up across the front, "Future home of the Brooks Compass Center." County officials showed up. Local news showed up. A camera crew from Atlanta showed up. Yancey cut the ribbon. Ray Dalton stood right next to him, arms crossed, grinning so hard it looked like it hurt. That same afternoon, Coach Prescott found Garrett standing by himself near the bleachers. She told him what she'd never told anyone, that she'd spent 2 years trying to get Yancey to regional track meets, but could never afford the travel fees. 2 years of watching talent go to waste because of $60 bus tickets. Garrett handed her a card. "The foundation will cover every athlete at this school, every meet, every year, starting now." Coach Prescott thanked him, walked behind the bleachers, and cried until she couldn't breathe. The story hit the news that week. Local first, then regional, then national. Headline: 2,000 bikers descend on tiny Georgia town for an 18-year-old hero. A clip went viral. Yancey in the half-finished house teaching a tattooed rider twice his size how to frame a wall while explaining structural tension from his notebook. 4 million views in 3 days. Donations poured into the Brotherhood's fund. $380,000 earmarked for Winslow Springs. Within 2 months, 3 businesses expressed interest in reopening on Main Street. The county reinstated the school bus route that covered Yancey's road. Nana Dot's A1C dropped for the first time in 3 years. Consistent medication, proper nutrition, no more choosing between food and insulin. And in January, Yancey Brooks walked onto the Georgia Tech campus for the first time. New backpack, same composition notebook, and a new watch on his wrist, a gift from Garrett. On the back, engraved in small, clean letters, a compass star and 5 words. Because it was Tuesday. 6 months later, Garrett Sullivan rode back to Winslow Springs. Alone this time. 1 motorcycle. No entourage. No cameras. Just a man on a bike and a long road south. He pulled up to the Brooks house and cut the engine. New roof, clean paint, solid porch. The blue tarp was gone. The box fans were gone, replaced by an air conditioning unit humming softly on the side of the house. Yancey was on the porch, home for spring break, notebook open on his knee. He looked up and smiled. "Hey, Mr. Sullivan, your head healed up real nice." Garrett laughed, climbed the steps and sat down next to him. For a while, neither of them said anything, just sat there, watching the road, listening to nothing. Then Garrett spoke. He told Yancey about his son, the highway outside Knoxville, the two men who pretended to help, the beating, the 45 minutes of cars driving past a young man lying on the shoulder of the road. By the time someone called 911, it was too late. He rubbed the compass ring with his thumb. "I buried my son on a Tuesday." The air on that porch got very still. "I started the Brotherhood because nobody stopped for my boy. Not one person in 45 minutes. He looked at Yancey. "And then you, a kid with nothing on a road in the middle of nowhere, heard strangers screaming in the woods and walked in. You didn't drive past. You walked in." His voice was steady, but his eyes weren't. "You gave me something I haven't felt in 18 years, Yancey." "What's that?" "Proof that it wasn't all for nothing." Yancey was quiet for a moment. Then he reached into his pocket and pulled out a small object. A compass star, hand-carved from dark wood, sanded smooth, precise cuts made in the Georgia Tech engineering workshop. "I made this for you. Figured your ring could use a friend." Garrett took it, turned it over in his palm. Didn't speak for a long time. Then he slipped it into his vest pocket, right over his heart. He rode away 10 minutes later. Yancey watched from the porch until the engine faded into nothing. Nana Dot came out with 2 glasses of sweet tea, looked at the empty road, looked at Yancey. "Who was that?" "A friend." Nana Dot smiled. "Must be Tuesday." Down on County Road 12, where Yancey found 4 chained men in the pines, someone had planted a small garden at the mile marker. Wildflowers, yellow and purple, and a hand-painted sign on a wooden stake. Someone stopped here. You know what gets me about this story? It's not the 2,000 motorcycles. It's not the scholarship or the house or the vocational center. Those things are incredible, but they're not the point. The point is a kid on a dirt road who had every reason to keep walking. No phone, no weapon, no one is watching. Armed robbers may be still in those woods, and he walked in anyway. Not for clout, not for a reward, not because anyone was filming, because it was Tuesday. And somewhere out there right now on some road in some forgotten town, there's another Yancey, doing the right thing when nobody's looking, helping when it costs them something, being brave when it's easier not to be. The question is, are we paying attention, or are we just driving past? If this story hit you somewhere real, smash that like button. Share it with someone who needs to hear it today. And subscribe because stories like this deserve to be loud. I'll see you in the next one.